Hello everyone and welcome to the Melia Movement podcast. This is a podcast that brings reality, it brings real stories and it brings real people into the limelight of you watching this. I want to spread awareness that us normal people do go on these journeys and come out the other end succeeding in life. Every single guest that I have on this show has been through something in life and now is doing absolutely truly incredible things. I want to share their journey and exactly how they get there. Big love, and as always, Melia fucking movement, baby. A big thanks to my sponsors, Amplified Nutrition, who provide tailored nutrition and training plans to help people improve their lifestyle and love the body they're in.
Baby. Melia movement, baby.
Dee.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Thank you for coming on. It's been a long time coming. So, 3 years.
Yep.
We found out before this podcast I've known you for. I've only known you as a winner and an incredible mum. Through obviously signing up with Amplified, our new sponsors.
Oi, oi.
So yeah, I'm intrigued. I know a lot about you. She's recently just come aboard as Melia as well, taking over the social media.
Yep.
So buzzing for that to happen. So I get to really find out who you are.
Yeah.
As I said, I do think you're an inspiration, same as Lee that came on, you know, both single mums, both bringing up two little terrors, both competing in a sport which is fucking hard, so I can only not admire that. You and Lee are absolute nutters. You're like talking to absolute lunatics, but her journey was incredible, and I know your one. You said, yeah, listen, I'm a single mum, of course I've got fucking stories to tell. Yeah. So I want to know who Little D is and how you've moulded into Big D having an impact on the world today.
So, Little D, bless her, the odds were stacked against her from the start, to be fair. Like, little pale ginger kid, growing up in a council house on a council estate. It was never going to be an easy ride for me. But yeah, like I say, I grew up with my family in council estate in East Worthing. So, yeah, I think I was quite like a bubbly kid, like quite like just a little bit weird. Like Roman really reminds me now of like me when I was a kid. So yeah, I was like quite like into like dance and drama, like big character. But then as I kind of like went to school, and then I did get like picked on for like having ginger hair and stuff, which is pretty standard. And I had like quite a volatile home environment. I never really felt like I fitted in, like anywhere, like especially at home. Like I didn't feel like I belonged with my family. I felt always like I was quite different to them. I actually used to fantasize about being adopted. I just was convinced that I wasn't from that family. Like I must be adopted, and that my real family are going to come and get me at some point. And I kind of spent most of my childhood thinking that. I don't know why. I just was like, I don't fit in with these people. I don't fit in. So I feel like from a young age I had to adapt to my environment, both at home and at school, so that I could like survive, really. Like I needed to change the way that I was naturally to fit in and to kind of just make sure that I didn't get in trouble. I was trying to like fly under the radar, to kind of not get in trouble, not stand out, just that's kind of how it was, really. My dad was very abusive, like physically, but more mentally, like emotionally abusive. So I was always kind of like treading on eggshells, trying to not do the right thing, say the right thing, not get in trouble. And yeah, that's kind of how it was.
How did you find the physical and mental abuse from someone? Because obviously we've had a few people come on here and they've been in the same situation, but from people that are just meant to love and adore you.
Yeah, it was difficult. And I always felt like, why do I keep getting it wrong? Like, why is nothing that I do ever, it's never right? So when you kind of live with someone like that, their behaviour is so volatile. So you literally don't know what you're going to get from one day to the next. I remember we all knew what time Dad was coming home from work, and we'd all be sat there like you could cut the tension with a knife. Like, we'd all be there. You'd never know what kind of mood he'd come in. If he came in and then he was happy, it was like, you could literally feel the tension lift, and you think, okay, we're okay, we're safe, it's gonna be okay. And then other times he'd come home and you just knew, and you'd be like, everyone would kind of be on edge. There was just this tension in the room. Quite often, me and my brother would then just be like, have dinner and just shoot up to our room, like just get out of the way. And then you'd hear kind of arguing downstairs. He was aggressive towards my mum, like violent towards my mum, and stuff like that. So it was just kind of constantly living in this kind of state of fear almost, like you just didn't know what you were going to be up against. So yeah, from a really young age, I had to adapt. I had to kind of like suppress a lot of how I was, to the point where it's almost in like recent years, I've had to like totally rediscover who I actually am, because you kind of become like a character. So I feel like I've lived most of my life as a character of who Dee is, rather than who actually am I? And it's only in the last kind of like 3-4 years I've actually discovered who I actually am and what I actually like and what I don't like, and having that kind of confidence to put boundaries in place and go, oh no, I actually don't like that, because I've lived so much of my life going, okay, how do you want me to be? How do you need me to be? And what do I need to do to basically stay safe?
Crazy. So with that, it's the power of someone's energy that can have hold of you. So
yeah, 100%. And it was literally like everything was about like, you know, I actually loved going to school because I felt safer at school, and I could be more myself at school than I could at home. And it was like, oh, you know, I did a lot of clubs, and I did, you know, spent a lot of time after school clubs and stuff like that, because I just loved being at school.
Yeah.
You know, I had some really good teachers, some really good friends that were like supportive and encouraging. And I probably got more encouragement and support from teachers at school than I did like at home. Like it's weird. I think about stuff now, but no one checked my homework. No one made me do my homework. Like, my parents didn't know what I was doing. And it was actually like, I think to myself now, like, shit, even as a kid, I was pretty disciplined because I had to do everything myself.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't want to get in trouble at school, so I knew I had to do my homework. But my parents weren't checking whether I was doing my homework. They didn't care. Like, there wasn't really anything in place that was like, you need to do these things. This is how you need to be. So I kind of had to like look after myself in a sense from that perspective, and be disciplined myself, because I wanted to do well at school and I wanted to please my teachers. So I was like, I've got to do all of this stuff. But it was like no one was kind of doing that at home for me.
Do you know what? That's mad. It's literally, do you know the film Matilda?
Yeah.
That's exactly what
I went
it's
to
like.
see the show the other day, actually.
That's so weird.
Yeah,
but it's like the film Matilda. She didn't feel like she fit in, and she ended up actually getting adopted by a teacher.
Yeah.
And the family were just ruthless, didn't care, and then that's the same situation.
It's very similar to that, and it's like I'm actually like, I've only really recently discovered this, that I hate confrontation.
Yeah.
I'm not a confrontational person. Like it triggers me inside, and I don't like it. But I grew up being this ballsy, outspoken, like, if you want to fight me, I'll fight you. Like, but that's how I had to be, because my dad wouldn't have any sign of weakness. I remember there was a girl, Samantha Harris, lived down my road. She bullied me right from nursery all the way through primary school, but she bullied everyone. She was horrible. I couldn't escape her at school, and I couldn't escape her at home because she lived down my street. But I remember it got quite bad, and I was like, I didn't want to go to school because it was being so bad. So it came out, so I told my mum about it, and then my dad found out about it, and it was like, well, you need to stand up for yourself. Like, he was very much that old school character, like, why are you crying? Because you're being bullied, like, because someone said something horrible to you. If someone hits you, you hit back. Like, we don't do this. Like, any sign of weakness was like, I couldn't do that. I couldn't get upset. If I hurt myself and I was upset, I'd be like, what the fuck have you done? Like, get up, like, sort yourself out. There was no compassion. There was no, like, oh, come here, give me, like, if Roman hurts himself, I'm not coming here, we have a cuddle. Yeah. I didn't get that. It was like being upset, being emotional, being vulnerable, which is how I actually am naturally. That was, if you showed that was unsafe, you were going to get in trouble for that. That was a sign of weakness. It was like, we're not like that. We, very much, you have to be hard. You have to stand up for yourself. You have to, like, be that way. So I kind of then went through school being like that. Like, I was very mouthy at high school. I'd be like, I never had a fight in my life. Couldn't fight my way out of a wet paper bag, but I gave it all the chat. Yeah. Like, if someone came at me, I was like, right, I need to just, like, front it out. And luckily for me, that people would back down, and I never got myself into, like, a dangerous situation, because I would have just folded. I would have folded like a piece of paper, but I had to give this impression that I was like, I'll take the world on. And that's kind of how I've lived my life. Yeah. And I've always been that way. And, like, I got a job, became the youngest team manager, like, in sales. I was, like, the only girl. I was, like, the youngest team manager they'd ever had. And it was because of that character. And I had to, like, again, feel like I conduct myself in a way. I was like, I'm not going to take any shit from these staff. And I was, like, real hard-nosed, like, woman, like, and everyone had this impression of me. But if those people could see me now, they'd be like, fuck, she's actually really nice. Like, she's not this horrible bitch character. But that's how I felt like I had to be successful in life. That's how I felt I had to be. But
that's how you've been brought up. So everything is what our parents teach us, and the journey that we go on is purely down to how we've been brought up. So my parents brought me up amazing. Granted, you can become a little shit every now and then. But I just want to dive into sort of, why do you think your parents were like that with you? Because a lot of it will stem down to their childhood.
Yeah, 100%. So, and then I'll have more kind of, like, empathy towards it now, because actually, like, I haven't had a relationship with my dad since I was 16. So basically, I got to a point where I was like, I don't have to have you in my life anymore. Yeah. So I'm not going to have you in my life. So I just cut it off. He never tried to stay in my life, and that was that. So I haven't seen him since I was 16. We don't have a relationship.
How does that make you feel?
And I'm fine about it. People ask me that all the time, and I'm like, do you know what? Not everyone has a great dad. Not everyone has that bond, and he was a toxic person. And I'm very much like, if someone adds negative energy or is toxic in your life, cut them off. And a lot of people won't do that with family, because they're like, it's family though, it's your dad, it's your mum. And I'm like, fuck that shit. They're toxic, and I don't want it around me. And my life has been better for not having him in it. But he was from a family. He was like one of 6. So he had a lot of brothers and sisters. They were put into care when he was young. So his mum, so my grandma, she put them all into care except for one. She kept one daughter at home. All of the other kids were put in care. So obviously he went through a lot of stuff because of that. And he went through a lot of trauma. And because of his trauma, he didn't know how to be a dad. So a lot of stuff that he went through, he then inflicted on us, because he didn't know better. He didn't know how to deal with it. Now, I think, like, a lot of people would be like, you're a product of your environment. If you grow up in that situation, that's how you become. But I've kind of gone the complete opposite. I'm like, no, I know how that feels. Yeah. So I don't want to make my son feel that way. Like, you experience something awful, and instead of you thinking, that was awful, I don't want my kids to go through that, you just repeated the same pattern. Yeah. And I'm like, I will not do that. That's it. Like, and I will, sometimes there are things that happen, like with Roman, that trigger me. And I'm like, right, I need to take a step back and think, right, I'm the adult here, I'm being triggered, but you're a child, it's my job to protect you. And it's really hard, because and my constant fear is, I don't want to repeat that cycle. Yeah. I don't want him to go through or to ever feel how I feel, because he's really sensitive, and sometimes it annoys me though, but I'm like, But no, that's how I was made to feel when I was a kid. Like I wasn't allowed to be upset or to be like sensitive about something very small. So I'm like, I need to give him the space to be upset and to be how he needs to be.
He's becoming everything that you sort of wish that you wanted, but you're also a parent that you wish you had. Because my mum, like she had not the best upbringing, but me and my brother, she's given us the world. She could have literally been like the brutal way that she got brought up, but she hasn't. She's literally broke that straight away.
Yeah, and that's how I read something like a couple of years ago, and it was like, be the person you needed when you were little. And that's how I try to be now, because I'm like, I want that one for myself, but also for Ro. I'm like, I need to be to him what I needed when I was little. And I think when I was younger, like I took a lot of influence from teachers and from like I used to do dance and drama, and I remember loved my dance teacher, I loved my drama teacher, and I had a really good head teacher at primary school, because these were the positive influences I had in my life, and that was all that I had, because I didn't have that necessarily at home. So I'm like, I had to take these kind of like role models from other places in my life as to how like things can be, although I didn't have that like from like a parental figure. You kind of try and get that from other influences.
Do you find it quite hard to do that?
I think it was like, I feel like it is and it isn't, because it's like I knew how I wanted to be. Like I say, I always had this sense of I don't belong here, like this, and I was like not my natural self, not my authentic self, not how I didn't grow up how I would have wanted to be if I'd been nurtured and encouraged to be myself. So it's always in that constant conflict of like, no, this is there's like kind of, who does Dee want to be, but then who does Dee need to be to stay safe? So it's like I was in this kind of constant conflict, which has then led me into like the relationships that I got into in later in life was all about people pleasing, and how does that person want me to be? Like, I like you, so how do you need me to be so that you like me too? I've spent my whole life just wanting to be liked by people and adapting who I am so that they were like me, and never stopping to go, actually, do I even like you? Like, do I like you?
We try when we're younger to fit in so much, we actually take ourselves out of our own lane.
Yeah,
I was exactly the same. When I was younger, I tried to be so many different people. I tried to fit in at school. I tried to be the cool kid. I ended up just becoming a prick, when really, if I think about things now and I've just took a step back and I am just in my own lane now, if I would have just done that when I was a kid and was that vulnerable, emotional person, I would have been a hell of a lot happier. And I wouldn't have had so many mental health or anxiety problems.
Yeah, and it's exactly that. But it's like, for me, I had to be that character, otherwise I wouldn't have survived. I wouldn't have survived.
What was the mental and physical abuse, if you don't mind touching on it?
So it was like, in terms of physical abuse, there was lots of stuff that my dad told me used to happen to him when he was in care, and I remember vividly one of the stories that he told us was that they were all, you know, you kids, you get sent to bed, you're messing around at bedtime, not going to bed, like chatting or whatever. And I remember him telling me about getting into trouble when he was in care, and they were all made to like stand in a cold corridor all night long. And it was like, and he was relaying this story to me as a small child, which again, I'm like, that was really inappropriate for you to like lay that on me. But I remember him relaying this story to me and thinking, God, that sounds awful. But then it happened to me.
Fuck.
So like me and my brother, I think my brother's room was being decorated. So we were in the same room, and my room was like the box room in the house. So like council house, you get 3 bedrooms. One of them's like a cupboard. That was my room. And we had bunk beds. So we were sharing the same room, and we were fucking about. We weren't going to bed. We were chatting, whatever.
As kids do.
And my mum used to work nights at nursing homes, 2 nights a week, and they were the worst nights ever, because it was just us and our dad, and it would always kick off. It would always be an awful, awful night. So we were fucking around. My dad came up. We got into trouble. I think initially my brother was in trouble, so he was up out of bed in the corridor, and then it was actually me. Very rarely, I was a pretty good child, but it was actually me. So I got dragged out of bed, And we lived in a council house and we had no central heating. It was like a very cold house. And I think it was like winter. So I'm like, little kid, I don't know, must have been like 7, 8. And I was in the corridor, freezing cold. It's like the middle of the night. And he just made me stand there for hours. And I just remember standing there like sobbing, like just wanting to go to bed. And I just had to stand there until he eventually decided that I could go to bed. But I remember there was another incident, and for me now as an adult reflecting on it, I'm like, fuck, I can see how emotionally abusive it was. But something happened, like I think we were play fighting or something. We were messing around. It was one of these occasions where it was a good day. We were playing, and then I think like, I don't know, I hurt my dad, like how I hurt my dad. I was like a tiny, skinny kid. Yeah. My dad was this big guy, but I'd pissed him off. I'd done something, I'd pissed him off, and it kicked off. He went upstairs to my bedroom, he turned my bedroom upside down, flipped my bed, trashed my room, sent me to my room. So I'm literally in my room, on the floor, crying. The room's just in a disarray, like everything's fucked. And I was just like, fuck, I've done it again. I've fucked up again. Like, how have I done this? Like, what? Oh, no, I'm not just... Like, it's just, like I say, I spent my whole time just trying to stay safe, fly under the radar, just don't get in trouble, just don't do anything that's going to trigger him. But the thing is, with people like that, you don't know what their triggers are. They could literally, anything could flip them. So that had happened, and I was like, okay. I was like, well, at some point, he's going to calm down. Mum will come help, the room get put back together, and it'll be fine. The next day, he wouldn't talk to me, wouldn't even acknowledge my existence. And it went on for about a week. He just didn't speak to me. And I was just like... And that feeling of just, like you don't even exist. Didn't think I was get upset. So. But I also remember, so, like, he was like, I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave because of you. So he was like, he basically said that he couldn't be around me at all. And remember, I was just a kid again, so I must have been like maybe 7, 8 years old. So it'd gone on for like a week. He wouldn't speak to me, wouldn't acknowledge me. It was like I wasn't there. And then he was like, I can't live here anymore because of her. Don't want to live here anymore because of her. I'm going to leave. And I remember he was at work and my mum went to me, we're going to have to go and see Dad at work, and you need to apologise and you need to beg him to stay.
What?
Because he's going to leave because of you.
I was going to ask, what did your mum do with all of this stuff going on?
So at the time when I was a kid, and I was in my mind, it was my dad, it was all my dad. But I look back at the situation now and I'm like, but she was there, and what did she do?
Yeah.
And because and I get it, like I totally get it now as an adult, but like she didn't really keep me safe either, because she was trying to keep herself safe and do what she needed to. He was very violent and very abusive to her as well. And she was from an abuse. Her dad was a drunk and was very abusive. So it's this pattern of behaviour. So she didn't want my dad to go, although he was abusive, and it was a very toxic relationship. So she was like, so she took me to his workplace, and I had to beg my dad not to leave, because that's what my mum wanted me to do. And I remember it, and like me being like, I'm so sorry, like I'll do whatever, like I'll change, I'm literally begging my dad not to go anywhere. And my mum making me do that. And I think back to that now and I'm like, fuck, that was so fucked up. But that was just how it was. And it was just constant. I was lucky. I say I was lucky in that I didn't get that much physical abuse. It was more mental from my perspective. The physical stuff was more at my brother and my mum. My brother got a lot more than I did. But yeah, again, there was one thing that Ro walks, when we walk to school, and he walks slow and it annoys me. But it triggers me, because I remember walking slow and my dad got annoyed with me, and he was behind me and he literally kicked me from behind that I literally, my feet left the floor and I like flew through the air because I was annoying him because I was walking so slowly, and he literally kicked me up the arse, booted me down the street. And I think now, like, sometimes when Ro's walking slow and I'm like, oh, just hurry up. And I get like angry and I'm like, no, this must be how he felt. Yeah. But instead of like regulating himself, he just lost it. So I have to like, I'm like, right, just calm, D. He's a kid. Just take extra. Now I'm like, right, just plan extra because you know the kid takes ages to walk places. Just plan your day better.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think, oh, that's how my dad must have felt. He must have felt so annoyed that he couldn't control his rage. So he literally just booted me through the street. And I remember the police got called. The police came round. I remember the police having to examine me to make sure I wasn't like properly injured. And that was all like a fucked up situation as well. Like, and yeah, it's just the police came to our house a lot as a kid. And that, again, that was just kind of normal. And then it's only now I'm an adult, I'm like, no, that weren't normal.
All right, do me a favour quickly. I hope you're enjoying this episode. And if you want to see more, please hit the subscribe button, give it a cheeky little like and a comment. It helps more than you know. Get back to it. So, that's just fucking mental. So, at 16, you finally got to fuck off. How did So obviously you would have seen kids at school with sort of happy families. You would have heard about Christmases and birthdays and how much of an impact did that have on you? Because obviously, I mean, men don't now like to think they do talk about emotions, but a lot of the older generations, it's just like bosh, caveman. Yeah. How did that have an impact on you?
So I just remember being like in awe of like these families and my like going to my friends' houses and seeing their mum and dads and just being like, oh, wow, like this is what a family looks like, because my family wasn't like that. Yeah. And I just remember being a bit, as I got older and as I became a teenager, I became a bit embarrassed. Like I didn't have people come to my house because I didn't want them to, like, I didn't want them to meet my family. I didn't want them to know, like, to see my house. Because when I was a kid, like younger, a lot of my friends were all council as well, so we were all kind of like the same. But when you get to high school, obviously people come from a bit further afield, and I was like, these people have really nice houses, they come from really nice families. And I was a bit like, oh yeah, I need to try and like make sure these people don't know that my family's not like this. My house isn't like a fancy house, it's like a very small house. So I became more conscious and more embarrassed by it. So yeah, I didn't really kind of have people come to me. I kind of spent, and as I got a bit older and I had a bit more freedom, and I spent a lot of time like out, like with my friends and at my friends' houses and like down the park and stuff like that, and just tried to spend as much time away from home as possible. Like I got my first job when I was 14, and I used to work like after school in a shoe shop and like weekends and just I just wanted to be independent. I just wanted to like have my own life. And I just, in my head, I was like, once I finished school, I wanted to I wanted to earn money. Like, I just wanted to just get out of home, like move out of home, like get my own money and just do my own stuff.
Unreal. So what was the next steps then?
So that's what I did.
Yeah.
So I was 16. I remember everyone was talking about college and what you're going to do at college. And I went, I ain't got a fucking clue. I don't want to go to college. And I remember saying to a teacher, she was like, well, if you don't go to college, you won't be anything. You won't amount to anything. And I was like, we'll see.
Standard teacher.
I was like, we'll see. Because I thought, I don't want to go to college. I didn't want to go to college and waste 2 years of my life on a course that I didn't really want to do, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. There's so much pressure on kids to have their whole life figured out when they're like doing their GCSEs at 14. I'm like, who the fuck? I just still don't know. Like, I'm still deciding. I'm like, you don't have to pick a career and do it for the rest of your life. No one tells you that when you're a kid. You don't have to, by the way. So yeah, I just wanted to earn money. So I was like, I'm not going to go to college. I'm not going to go. So I finished school. I had this Saturday job. We got a new manager, didn't like her. So one Saturday she was like, oh, basically she said to me and the other Saturday girls, if you don't like it, leave. So we went upstairs and I went, should we fucking go then? And everyone was like, should we? And I was like, yeah, go. So we literally all put our little bags on and we just marched out, and I was like, fuck you, bitch. I thought I was so fucking cool. And then we were like, oh shit, I've got no money now. So we spent the rest of the Saturday wandering around different shops in town trying to get a job. Anyway, I got a job like cold calling on the like telesales, Anglian home improvements, ringing people up, cold calling. But actually I was all right at it. I had like the gift of the gab. Like I had this false character, like this false confidence of who Dee was. So I was like, yeah, I can sell stuff. So I did that for the summer when I left school. And then my brother's girlfriend worked for an insurance company and she was like, I can get you an interview. And I was like, I don't want to work there. My mum was like, well, just go for the interview, like just go and see. And I was like, all right, fine. Went there. The manager liked me. I was like this little, like, cocky little kid. He saw something. I didn't pass the test that you had to do, but he was like, I'm going to take a punt on her.
Yeah, sick. I rate that.
So yeah, thank fuck he did, because he took a punt on me. He saw something in me that I didn't see in myself and gave me a job. So for 16, I was on like 11k a year and I was like living at home. I was like, I am fucking balling. None of my friends had any money. I had all of this money. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I was like, sick. So yeah, and I just worked my way up. I was there for like 6 years and I started on the phones doing customer service. Then I went into sales. Then I became a coach, like a sales coach there.
Oh, wow.
And I was doing really well for myself. I moved out when I was 17. I got a boyfriend, moved out of him. That was awful. But I got out of home. My main objection was leave school, get a job, learn how to drive, move out. I was like, tick, 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 did it all. Was in a very toxic relationship, but I was like, we'll worry about that later.
So the toxic relationship, sorry, because that will stem down to obviously the relationship with your dad. How was that then? Because obviously you wouldn't have had any trusted men.
Yeah,
to start with.
I had no positive male influence in my life, like at all, and I had no idea of what a relationship was supposed to be. The only example I had was my mum and dad, which was hella abusive. So I was like, cool, okay, so red flags, they're not red flags when they're safe.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, he's really horrible to me. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. I like you. I'm like, yeah, you're really cool. I really like him. He's an arsehole. So that's really attractive to me. If someone's nice to me, I'm like,
yeah, fuck off.
You're weird. And that kind of like almost gave me the ick. Like if someone's nice to me, I'm like, I don't trust that behaviour.
Yeah.
If someone's horrible to me or abusive to me, I'm like, I know where I stand with you. And I don't know, I think there's always part of me that's like, again, this whole like, Bob the Builder, I can fix him. I'm like, I can fix him. I can turn it around. I'm like, it's fine. So I basically got with someone who was my dad. Like it was like the epitome of like that. He was very abusive. We would, when you go past like couples in the street and they're like having this fiery, massive row, I'm like, we were that people. And that's how it was. And yeah, like proper, like he mugged me off. Like I used to give him money. He was like a major like stoner, so he used to just smoke weed like all day, every day. Like he'd be rolling joints for breakfast. Like, and I was like, yeah, he's so cool. And I was just like, it was like my first like proper relationship, and I was just like exposed. It was the first time I'd been around people that did drugs and like all of this stuff, and I was just like, I didn't do any of this, but I was just like, oh, this is what cool people do. I was like, yeah, so it was just fine. And he was from London, he was a little bit older, and yeah, I was just, like I've just felt he thought he was great, but he treated me like absolute shit. But I didn't know any better, so I just went with it until I found out one day so he was a bit older, so the flat and everything was in his name because I was only 17. So I used to pay all of my money to him so that he could pay for everything. Only he didn't pay for shit. He was just pocketing my money and spending it on drugs and drink and probably shagging other birds and taking other birds out and stuff. And that was that. And I found out because a letter came through the door one day from the estate agents addressed to him, and it wasn't sealed. So I was like, oh, I just have a little sneaky peek at what the letter says. The letter said we were getting evicted because we hadn't paid any rent. And I was like, oh, fuck. So that was when I was like, nah, enough's enough now. I was like, right. So I had it out with him. Again, I felt guilty because I've read his letter.
Yeah.
don't worry about the fact that he's been taking my money and all the rest of it. I'm like, oh, but you've read the letter, D. You shouldn't have read his letter. But anyway, I was like, I've read the letter, like, what's been going on? And he was just like, oh, yeah, blah, blah, blah. He was like, I'm going to have to move back to London, like back in with my mum's. And I was like, okay, well, what about us then? He's like, well, we'll just go back to having like long distance relationship. And I was like, fuck that, no. I was like, I'm not doing that again. I'm like, we can't have lived together for this amount of time to then go back to long distance. So I was like, if you're going to move back to Croydon, to Mitcham and your mum, I was like, I'm not getting on the train.
But even that, you still didn't walk away from him.
I was like, no, but I was like, I'm not going back to doing that. So I was like, no, enough's enough. I was like, I'm done.
Oh, that's sick.
Then he moved back and then he called me and was like, oh, you know, about us getting back together. And I was like, nah, I'm out. And the thing is with me, like, it takes me a long time to get to that point. But once I'm done, I'm done.
Shutters down, it's
I'm done. Yeah, I'm like, it's like there's a switch. I will literally give absolutely everything. I'll give everything to someone and I'll take a lot of fucking shit. But as soon as I'm done, I'm like, it's just like locked down. I'm just shut it off completely. I feel nothing. So I remember him calling me up and he's like, I'm the love of your life. And I was like, I don't think so, bruv. I was like, bye, see ya. And I remember a few months later, he texted me on my birthday and I was like, new number, who this? I was like, I don't know who you are. And that was that. And then, I was like single for a couple of years and I was like going out clubbing, like 3 nights a week, like living my best life. And I was just like, fuck this, I don't need no man.
Living on your own?
I was living on my own. Like I'd moved back to my mum's for like a month and then I was like, I can't do this, I need my own space. And then I got like into like a flat share, rented a room. The guy was hardly ever there, so it was like pretty much me all the time. And I was just like, I was earning good money and I was living on my own and I was just like, just going out, like just like drinking, clubbing with I didn't even go out like drinking that much. A lot of the time I'd drive and I'd drive all my mates home but I was just enjoying myself and and that's how I was for like a couple of years because I was just like, I kind of was a bit traumatised from the relationship, I think. I was like, just jumped straight into it and then I was just like, well, that was really fucked up. So then the next relationship after that, I went with someone that I knew I could dominate.
Yeah.
So I was like, I know that you're just easy and you're just gonna let me walk all over you, which is kind of what happened. Because I just wanted someone that was just safe and wasn't going to give me any ag.
Yeah. And how do you feel looking back at that now?
And it was like, it was
Do you think
fine.
he deserved that?
Well, when I say that, I was like, I wasn't horrible to him. Like I was still like, I was a good girlfriend. Like I was nice. I was like, but it just wasn't like, I wasn't fully invested. Like I wasn't, it was just safe. Like I wasn't, he kind of did his own thing. I did my own thing. He used to still, like he would gamble a lot. So he still lied to me a lot and did a lot of stuff behind my back. And then we moved into, I was like, right, my next thing on my list was, I had this list of like all of these things, all of these boxes you're supposed to tick as an adult, right? So I was like, I can drive, I've got a job, I've done this. I was like, right, mortgage, I need to get a house, my own house, not rented, I need to get a house. Yeah. So I was like saving, we were living at his parents and that was all I was focused on. So I was saving all of this money and we were going to get this flat together. So we got the flat, we got the mortgage, I was like, I had the flat. My brother had said to me, he was like, I don't know, Dee, whether you should like get the flat, like maybe you should rent together somewhere first, just the two of you. And I was like, nah, fuck it, it's dead money. I was like, I'm going to get the flat, it's going to be fine. I was like, I just need to get on the property ladder. Literally 2 weeks after moving in, I went, I don't want to be with you no more.
Fuck.
So we bought the flat, we'd done it up, and then he was like, oh, I'm going to have a flat warming party. And I went, cool, I'm going out. And he was like, what? I went, I don't want to be here. I'm going to go out. And he didn't even question why I wasn't going to be at my own flat warming party. And I was just like, I didn't want to be there. And I remember his mate came over and he made a joke about us getting married. And I went, I ain't marrying him. And then I suddenly thought to myself, you've just bought a mortgage with someone.
Yeah.
And someone's made a joke about the next step would, logical step would be for us to get married. And I was like, as if I'm going to marry this guy. And I suddenly, it was like a reality check because I thought,
shit, what
you
am I
don't
doing?
want to marry this guy. So why have you just got a mortgage with him? Why are you living here? That was it. I tapped out again. I was like, I'm out. And I wrote him a letter, and then he was like, and then I was like, I don't want to be with you anymore. I don't love you. And he was like, he was devastated, and I was just like, yeah, I'm done. And realistically, I checked out before then, and I told him a few months before the flat completed, I was like, I'm not happy. Like, I don't think this is the right thing to do. And he's like, oh, it's just because it's taken so long. He's like, it'll be fine. Like, we'll go on holiday. We'll do this. We'll do all of these things. He's like, it'll be fine. I love you, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, cool. And I was like, in hindsight, I should have listened to that doubt in me that was like, you're not happy, Dee. I should have listened to that. But I was like, it was almost like I'd gone too far down. I was like, I've got to just, I've said I'm going to do this now, so I'll stick to it. But yeah, we broke up. And then it was like I brought him out of the flat, and that was that. But yeah, it kind of led me into my next relationship, which is my long-term relationship. So Rose's dad. But yeah, I didn't know about narcissists and gaslighting and all of that sort of stuff. And I was like completely and utterly swept away by this man that I thought was just incredible. And without me even knowing it, I'd slipped into probably the most abusive relationship that I'd been in. But it was only once it ended that I knew, because I was so like under his spell that I didn't part of me knew, because there was stuff that happened that I didn't tell anyone about, because I knew what they would say. I knew what I would say if someone said that to me. But I was like, yeah, it was fucking weird. And you come out of it and you're like, oh shit, that actually happened to me.
Mental. So obviously you've with your dad and with the bloke you was with before, talk to me about how the hell, I mean, the power of a narcissistic relationship is just absolutely fucking terrible. Like, I think it's mad because it's so common now. A lot of people do go through it. A lot of girls go through it. A lot of lads go through it now, to be fair. So talk to me about, for people that have been through it, I want you to talk about your journey with it and how you came out the other end, because there'll be a lot of people watching this that are currently in them situations. We've had a lot of guests come on the podcast before that have been in them, but I always want to keep shedding light on it. Yeah,
and it's tricky because I think there are very subtle signs, and I've learnt so much about it since now, and I can see the signs clear as day. But when you're in it, they're so subtle and they're so clever that you don't notice. And it starts with like the smallest things, and then it builds and it builds and it builds, and before you know it, you don't know who the fuck you are. Like, you literally have you don't know who you are. And this will make you laugh, but for 10 years, I told everyone my favourite colour was green. My favourite colour's not green. My favourite colour's purple, and it's always been purple. But this person told me my favourite colour was green one day, and my favourite colour was green for 10 years. And I was like, the simplest of things, like I changed the way that I dressed. I changed my circle. I had a friend, when we got together, I had a best friend, and I haven't for the duration of that relationship, I haven't spoken to her because he decided he didn't like her and that she was a bad influence on me. And I was like, so I just cut her off. Completely cut her out of my life because he didn't like her. And it's just little subtle things. So like, things will happen. So like for us, it was every night out he'd get really drunk, and it would be every time he was drunk, we would go out, and it would be awful. Like, he'd be really abusive. He'd say horrible things to me, but the next day he'd be so sorry, and it'd be like, it was just because I was drunk. I didn't mean those things that I said, and I'd forgive him, and it'd be fine. But then it would happen every time. And it was all the false promises, like, I'll change, I'll stop drinking whiskey, it's the whiskey that does it to me. Or I'll stop doing this, it's that does it to me. But it doesn't change, it just carries on, and then it happens in everyday life before they've had a drink. But everything's your fault. Nothing's ever their fault. Yeah. And I couldn't argue with him because he would tie me in knots. Like, I could never, I'd know in my head, like, I'd try and put my point across. But they're so clever at twisting everything that you actually go,
they start making you think,
I don't know now.
Yeah.
And because I told him so much about my upbringing, about my life, and he's the first person that I properly opened up to about all of that stuff. And what they do is they use all of that against you. So they learn all your insecurities, all the things that you don't like about yourself or that you worry about yourself, and then they use them against you. So it's like the person that you trust and that you love and you care about most in the world, and they learn all of these things. They learn them on purpose so that they can use it against you. And I remember having an argument. I was having an argument one day, and me begging him not to leave me, and I was just like, Mom, maybe it's me, maybe I'm the toxic one because of all of this stuff that happened with my dad. And he just let me believe it all, and he was like, yeah, it's you, like, it's all you.
Fucking hell.
Or just like little things, like we'd have an argument, he'd be in the wrong, and they say stuff to you like, you deserve better than me. So you go, no, I don't deserve better than you. Like, I don't deserve better than you. Like, you're what I want. But I'm like, if someone says you deserve better, you fucking do deserve better, and they know it. So what narcissists do, they break you down and put you back together in pieces that are easier for them to control. Everything's to suit their narrative. So if they tell you that you deserve better, it's because they know that you do, and they're just hoping that you don't notice it. So they try and make you feel as low as you possibly can because they know that you're potential, and they know that as soon as you realise it, you'll be gone, and you won't tolerate that. So the only way to keep you is to keep you thinking that you can't do better.
Yeah.
They're everything, and you're never going to get better than that.
Yeah, it's fucked. I mean, I listen to that now, and I've just got flashbacks of me when I was younger. Like, I was fucking horrible. I look at the person I used to be, and I just think, it gets me upset. Like, absolutely disgusting at some of the things they do. But I had to learn the hard way. People had to leave my life, and I did have to turn my life around massively. So, I can see it from like two ends, to be fair, because I've had it done to me as well.
Yeah, and like, don't get me wrong. Like, it might sound like this is all like doom and gloom, but someone asked me the other day, what if you could change one thing about your life, what would you change? And I wouldn't change any of it.
Sick.
Like, I wouldn't change any of it. Like, everything that happened when I was a kid, growing up, all of the relationships that I've been in, I wouldn't change anything about it because they've all led me to who I am now. And actually, like, I wouldn't be the way that I am now had I not gone through all of those experiences. So I can't live with any regret because actually they've all shaped me. They've all brought me to this point. There's so many things that if I hadn't have done that, and if I hadn't have done that, and I'm like, but I wouldn't be me. I wouldn't be where I am now. And I'm like, it's all lessons. It's all got me to where I needed to be.
Best way to look at it is you can't fucking change it anyway.
Exactly.
So the best thing, you literally can't change anything your dad's done. You can't change any of these fucking men have done to you. You can't change anything that anyone bad has done to us. The only thing you can do is just make sure our children, make sure our friends, make sure anyone we come into contact with, I believe it's selfish to hold in all the lessons. That's why I want these podcasts to go out so people can just fucking learn as much as possible, because I don't believe I should go through something and not put it out there for other people to not learn and become better and get themselves out of situations.
100%. And that's exactly how I think. I'm like, right, all of this stuff has happened to me for a reason, and the universe only gives you shit that you can handle, right? So I've had all of this stuff because I can handle it. I've survived everything I've ever been through, and it's made me who I am. So I'm like, right, I'm grateful for all of it. I wouldn't change any of it.
I'm real. Big up Sky Daddy, the universe. What a journey.
Yeah.
What a fucking journey. I always ask my guests at the end of every podcast, Melior means for the pursuit of the better in life. How do you plan on pursuing the better in life moving forward?
So I always want to try and have a positive impact on everyone that I meet and leave people better than I found them. So it's just trying to if you think something nice about someone, make sure you say it. Like, I see girls in the gym all the time and I'm like, fuck, she looks banging, or I'm like that gym shit or whatever. So I'm like, make sure that I always make a conscious effort to go and pay people compliments, big people up, just try and have a positive impact on the world and the people around me. I only have a small circle. I think I'm not going to change the world, but if I can change my world and help make the people in my world's day a little bit better, then that's what I want to do. And it's taking all of the lessons and all the things that have happened to me in my life and sharing that with other people to make sure that they, you know, if I can try and save someone else going through something similar to what I've gone through, then I'll do that. And yeah, the most important thing is making sure that I am who I needed as a kid for both myself and for Ro, and to just, you know, have a positive impact on the people that I'm around.
Unbelievable. I've had no idea, and I'm sure that's probably not even half.
It's just the tip of the iceberg.
Unbelievable. I'm massively proud of you, and I'm so glad to see you smiling and laughing around the gym that I have done for years, and you have a big buzz and energy around everyone, and obviously you're a great mum to Ro as well. So
thank you.
I really, really appreciate hearing your journey today. Really appreciate the vulnerability of being emotionally open and being so honest, and for people out there to listen as well, because that's going to have a massive, massive impact on people that are watching this now. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
As always, thank you for watching. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, and please push this into the path of someone that you might feel benefit from it. Big fucking love. Melly Movement, baby.
Melly Movement, baby.